Hi, my name is John Irvin, and I'm here with a special guest. He is a renowned author of The Game of Love, Changing the Rules Changes Everything, and a Course in Miracles teacher. He has traveled the country teaching A Course in Miracles, and that is why we're here. So, Kevin, thank you very much for coming, and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
The $6 million question is, what is A Course in Miracles?
Well, it probably would be best to give you a little bit of a backstory. Two individuals, Helen Schucman and Bill Thetford, worked at Columbia University as psychology professors and heads of their department. And there was a lot of conflict in the department at that time. And Bill Thetford said to Helen Schucman, there must be another way. There must be a better way. And as if on cue, Helen Schucman, who had been having these dreams and visions prior to this, began to hear a voice inside of her head that said, "This is A Course in Miracles. Please take notes." And she would literally, it was a process where she would hear the voice, she'd write it down, and Bill Thetford would then take the dictation and type it up. And 7 years later, we have A Course in Miracles, which is actually 3 books: the text, the workbook for students, and the manual for teachers. And it really is, and by the way, the voice that Helen claimed to have heard introduced itself as the historical Jesus. And I have never met anybody who has read A Course in Miracles, including myself, who doubts that for 1 second, because it's a very powerful work that came from seemingly out of time and space into time and space to help us awaken to the awareness of who we are as children of the light and children of the day.
When was this written?
This began in the mid-1960s, and they finished in the mid-1970s.
Tell me how you got introduced to A Course in Miracles.
Well, from the age of 15, I began preaching in Kansas City, and I was and hosting television shows and traveling across the country as a fundamentalist Christian evangelist. Well, I did that till I was about 20 or 21, and I was absolutely miserable. I was preaching, I was a hypocrite. I was preaching the gospel of Jesus Christ that I thought was the gospel of Jesus Christ at the time, and a gospel of peace, and I just wasn't experiencing it at all. And I was extremely depressed, extremely even suicidal. And so I remember, as though it was yesterday, I was sitting at the pew, on the pew in my church, and I said, "God, if you want me to find the truth, you're going to have to show it to me." I said, because I am sick and tired of looking for it myself. And with that, I walked out of that church, I quit the ministry, I quit everything. And I went home, and I randomly picked out a psychiatrist out of the phone book. I went to him, and I unloaded on him for about an hour, and he says to me, "Kevin, you don't need therapy." He said, "I've never done this in my 15 years of practice, but," he said, "I want to give you something." And he gave me A Course in Miracles. And I took it home, and I opened it up, and I read the introduction. It said, "This is A Course in Miracles. It is a required course. Only the time that you take it is voluntary. Free will does not mean that you can establish the curriculum. It means only that you can elect what you want to take at a given time. This course does not aim at teaching the meaning of love, for that is beyond what can be taught. It does aim, however, at removing the blocks to the awareness of love's presence, which is your natural inheritance. This course can therefore be summed up, or the opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. And this course can therefore be summed up very simply in this way: nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God." And with that, it really served as a springboard into the entire curriculum of A Course in Miracles, which has transformed my life and the lives of hundreds of thousands of people.
The first thing that comes to mind, or the thought that comes to mind, is the removal of blocks to reveal love. Can you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah. See, our task, the Course tells us, is not to seek for love, but to seek for and find all the barriers that we have built against love. So the Course teaches love through the mechanism of forgiveness, by simply recognizing that the only thing standing between you and me right now are our judgments about each other, our grievances we may have between each other if we had any. And this is the case. So the process of forgiveness is merely removing every obstacle that we have interposed between ourselves and other people, and ourselves and God. I should probably give you a little bit of history too, because the Course says that into eternity, where all is one, there crept a tiny mad idea in which the Son of God remembered not to laugh. In other words, we all got together and collectively
consciously,
and said,
yes.
right, and said, we took what the Course calls a detour into fear, and fell into a deep sleep. And nowhere, the Course reminds us, does it say when Adam fell into a deep sleep. Nowhere does it say that he ever woke up. And so the Course's contention is this, that it is impossible to be separate from our source, the source and center of all that is, and it is impossible for us to be separated from each other. It gives an example of a tiny wave in the ocean that thinks it is separate from the ocean, or a tiny sunbeam of light that thinks it is separate from the sun. Now, no matter how loud this little wave, and no matter how loud this little sunbeam cry, I'm separate from my source, it doesn't make it true. And the same is true with us. So the Course says that we took this detour into fear, and very much like, for instance, the story of Adam and Eve, where they had in the Garden of Eden placed before them, God said, I set before you the tree of life and the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Eat of the tree of life, and you shall surely live. Eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and you shall surely die. What is the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? It's the tree of opposites. And this Course is probably the most perfect, non-dualistic thought system that I'm aware of, and that those who are teachers and students of A Course in Miracles, I think, would agree with me. It's a perfect thought system, but the purpose of this Course, ultimately, we need to remember, is not knowledge, it's peace. And it's one thing to say you want peace, it's another thing to actually mean it.
Well, that's what brings me to my next question. You said that there were 3 sections. And how does it teach you to remove these blocks and come to peace?
Well, the text sets forth a theoretical framework of the Course. And the second book, the workbook for students, is the actual book that will bring it from conceptualizing about all of these ideas that the Course sets forth to actually experiencing it. So the workbook has 365 lessons, and it's designed, A Course in Miracles is designed for individual self-study. It is not designed to be a cult. It's not designed to have a following, and so forth. It's designed for an individual to sit down, read the text, go through the workbook day by day. And the workbook at the beginning says, if you do this, if you do the lessons, the truth that A Course in Miracles submits to us through the leadership of the Holy Spirit will prove itself to you through your experience. So I'm not here saying, you need to buy this stuff. I'm here saying, try it out, go through the lessons, and the Course sets forth at the beginning of the workbook that, hey, some of these ideas may be very hard for you to grasp. Some of them you may disagree with. And it says none of this matters, because when you go through the lessons, you will see the veil of fear, the veil of tears, the veil of death begin to diminish, and you will see the light beyond the veil begin to dawn upon your mind and your heart. And you will begin to understand the message of Jesus Christ, the message of love, loving God with all of your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and loving other people as you want to be loved. And again, that love is done through forgiveness. So all we're forgiving, if you will, is an illusion of separation. You never forgive the truth. You only forgive that which is not true. And when you forgive that which is not true, that which is true then comes into apparent awareness in your sight.
I have talked to many people who have read the course but have not done the lessons, and they don't quite get it.
Yeah.
So
Because this is not a course about the play of ideas. This is, I mean, this course is very practical, and if it wasn't practical, it would mean nothing to me. It's practical because it gives, through the workbook lessons, again, the experience of peace, the experience of love, the experience that you are not alone, that, I tell my students all the time, if there's one thing I have learned in this course that has benefited me so much, it is, one, the remembrance of who walks with me, the Christ, and two, my total and utter dependence upon God for everything, for my direction in life, my purpose, my providence, and my plan. I don't wake up and I don't do anything throughout the day without first checking in and stepping back and allowing that light within me to step forward to guide me. Because, if we're relying, the Course tells us, upon our own strength within this world, we have every reason to be afraid. Yes. But thankfully, there is a greater presence that lives within you and me that does want to guide. But we can't hear it because we're listening to the raucous shrieks and sick imaginings of that voice of fear the Course calls the ego. I like to call it an acronym for edging God out.
Which brings me to my last question. Obviously, we're going to go into more detail further. However, it just comes to my mind, and I know this is not from me, this is from something else, but this question is, tell me a little bit more about the holy instant. Once we get rid of these blocks for an instant, what happens?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, the holy instant is that time where we recognize that we walk with others in eternity and not in time and space. So a holy instant occurs the moment that I recognize that I'm not what I made of myself, but I am as God created me, and that my true identity rests here in eternity and not in time and space. All right? Someone once said that we crucify ourselves between two thieves, past regrets and future expectations. And this is what the Course says we do. That we nail other people and ourselves to the cross of time and space, and we don't really enjoy the comforts of the present moment. So the holy instant is that glimpse into the present moment, into eternity, where we, and this is really important, for instance, I do not see my interests as separate from you. I see that we share the same interest of awakening to our true reality, of calling out for love and of calling out for light. So the holy instant is that moment where you can let go entirely of time and space and understand that heaven is here. Okay? It's not a place up in the sky. It's a level of awareness and a level of consciousness. If heaven is here, there is no other place. Heaven is now, there is no other time. Because the Course tells us, and so does science, by the way, that time and space are really illusory, and that our true identity is not chained or imprisoned within this place, but that we are free and without limitations, and as the Course says, no body can contain my spirit, nor impose upon me a limitation that God did not create.
Kevin, thank you very, very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. God bless.
God bless. And I want to thank you all for watching, and God bless.